no pressure at all. Really happy to be having this conversation with two of my faves. It's really nice. Now, Dr. Shola is a lawyer, founder of Women in Leadership publication, political and women's rights activist. She's just out here doing the damn thing. Can we have a round of applause, please? Kelechi Okafor is a writer, presenter, actor, and baby girl. Round of applause, please. I want to get right into the conversation, right? Because I think that's why we're here at Black Tech Fest. Also want to big up Color in Tech each and every time. If it wasn't for them, this would not be happening. Bigger and better each and every year, everybody. Let's remember that. You know, people keep saying, oh, we should do our own things. We should do our own things. This is proof that it happens, right? So that's why you're all here. Dr. Shola, I want to start with you. You've got a book.
Yes, I do, actually.
Now, your book, This Is Why I Resist. What inspired you to write it?
Am I in a safe space? Am I amongst friends? So what inspired me to write This Is Why I Resist? I was inspired by the fact that I was pissed off. Am I still in a safe space? Am I amongst friends? I mean, look, when we talk about the lived experience of being a woman, a black woman, a person of African descent, of having to continually defend who we are, explain ourselves. I'm like, I'm sorry, who died and made you God? What nonsense is this? So I think for me, a lot of the things you will find in my book, This Is Why I Resist, actually addresses the nuances that we are not allowed to speak about on television, on radio. They don't give you enough time to have conversation. They expect you to be, I don't know, polite. I am very polite. I have no issue being polite. But if the politeness is going to get in the way of me speaking my mind, we have issue. So that's the problem. People think that in a world where we live uncomfortably with some uncomfortable truths, they expect us to stand on public platforms and sugarcoat the truth, make you feel comfortable, have a cup of tea. Forget that and forget you. Which is why This Is Why I Resist was birthed. Let me not lie right now that there were some chapters in that book I needed to take a break from because I did not realize how much I had personally internalized. You know how we just get up and we keep going? Okay, you need to do school, you need to work, you have kids. You keep pushing without taking the time to address your own emotional, mental, psychological, and physical strength. So This Is Why I Resist was like, or is like a therapeutic, I suppose, process. It was like that for me. But honestly, one of the things that motivates me to speak up is literally that, I start to see red. There's fire being stirred in my belly, and my butt can't sit down. And if I can't sit down, it means it's time to open my God-given mouth and let people know there's somebody up here ready to speak the truth.
Thank you. And some of the best things are created when we're pissed off, you know. You know, you have those conversations and you really tell someone about themselves and it ends and you go home and you think, yeah. See that? Book form.
No, and that's the thing. I don't know about many of you. It took me, I know some people see me as, oh, she's an extrovert. She seems like a very strong black woman. She's very open, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. But I realized, I'm now in my 40s, of course. I know I don't look it, but we try. I realized that I had not given voice to my voice until I probably hit my late 30s. And I did not realize that I knew I had a voice, don't get me wrong. But giving power, recognition to my voice to speak up wasn't something until I did later on in life. I was probably doing it in pockets, in different places. Now it's just become, I suppose, more of a complete identity, so that it's not just about picking battles. it's really about recognizing that there are battles out there that I'm already a part of, whether I choose to or not. So yeah, there's some people that you need to teach them the manners that their parents failed to teach them. And you need to put them in the right place. And that should not be a problem. Just understand that when you're doing it, don't let people define you and tell you that you can't speak a certain way or you can't be a certain way when you are verbally burying people in their own crap.
Thank you, Dr. Shola. And I think that really speaks to the conversations we've been having throughout the day. We've spoken about community, and there's also been this real theme of not asking for permission or not asking for space. You walk into that space and you take it. And given that we are at Black Tech Fest, I wanted to come to you next, Kelechi. Congratulations on Edge of Here. Now, your book, I mean, quite poignant, actually. It has, themes of tech, has themes of sci-fi, has themes of, the identity of black women in there. What inspired you to write this book?
I think that we are seeing ourselves all of the time being erased from conversations about technology, from conversations generally. And I think that it's an act of liberation to write ourselves back into existence. We watch speculative fiction or dystopian TV and film, and we ask ourselves, how is it that you created this fictional world, but somehow black people aren't in it? Like, you lot were going up for Game of Thrones, and I was just like, okay, but why is it even in that world we're slaves? Like, what? So I just wanted to explore the various timelines, dimensions that look like this one, but I'm sort of amplifying the powers that I already see in so many of us. In one of the stories, the protagonist, Ibby, she's a guardian of grief. She's a psychotherapist by day, but she can hold people's grief. And I didn't have to think too hard about that because I see all the time when things happen in society and people say, oh, that's fine, a black woman will come and fix it. Like, how many percentage of white women voted for Trump? And then it was black women that had to go and get people to sign up to vote in order to get Trump out of office. And people were just like, yeah, black people or black women will come and fix it. So I started thinking about what that means, how the wombs of black people were necessary in order to create the tenets of capitalism and uphold white supremacy, yet those same wombs are being targeted all of the time when it comes to reproductive legislation, when it comes to black maternal mortality rates. So I say all of these things and it's extremely serious, but in the stories, I write it with tenderness because ultimately I believe that black women deserve tenderness. They deserve to be seen, but not just seen and then shown back their trauma, but instead rewriting the love that we're meant to see in the day-to-day, but rewriting it into technology and rewriting it into our existence.
Thank you, Kelechi. So I've got a question for you, and Dr. Shola, I've got the same question for you, actually. And there's an element of, I think, tenderness about what you said, right? So, black women expecting to pick up the pieces, be the caregivers when things go wrong. But it's interesting because, given that, and that's both probably something that, powers you along, the wants for change, the wants for difference. I have noticed that both of your identities have been collapsed into this really one-dimensional and untrue stereotype of angry black women. And not just that. Outside of that, your softness is very rarely seen. Your reality is very rarely seen.
And I am very soft.
We saw that, actually. We did see that. But there are lots of people who refuse to see that, right? When you're so vocal, especially as black women, when you're so vocal about this stuff, automatically you become a figurehead of anger. And people don't acknowledge the love and the tenderness that sits underneath the anger and the reason, and probably not anger, the power underneath what you do. So I'll start with you, Kelechi. That was a long question, isn't it? What is it like navigating that?
It's lonely, I think, and that's why it's important to be able to see wonderful women like Dr. Shola, see other people who are doing the things that they do, and sometimes you wish that other black people would recognize what you do. I think that sometimes even when people see me or even see me in spaces such as these, they've already programmed themselves that, oh, well, the way that Kelechi says things, because I don't say things in a palatable way, and I haven't said things in a palatable way for a long time, and it took other people catching up to the fact that I'm just going to say things the way that I say it. And I watch the difference in how people receive what I say, and then when it's said by somebody else who they find more palatable and respectable, they can go up for it. They're like, yeah, this is amazing, but I just said that. So why do you need it to be sugar-coated? Unless you too are an agent of white supremacy, why do you need it to be sugar-coated? Like, we don't have time. The thing is that time is a construct, yes, but at the same time, we don't have time. So if somebody's giving you something directly, not rudely, because I'm not a rude person, right, but I'm a direct person, and I think that if you love yourself and you love your community, you love this world enough, you will strip away the layers that hold you back, that impede you from getting to the truth and getting to the action, right? And so it's hard watching people reflect back to me who they think that I am, because if you pay close attention, like I've always said, I'm just a baby girl. I'm not like superhuman. I'm not doing anything out of the ordinary. I'm doing what I believe that it's possible for us all to do, and I just wonder why we are not all wanting to do it.
Yeah.
I think that's a great answer. Thank you, Kelechi. And you speak about palatability. I mean, there's nothing palatable about oppression, so the presentation of it shouldn't be palatable either. Dr. Shola, what about for you? So navigating this space where people, collapse your identity. I mean, they make some very weird judgments about who and what you are. Navigating that space as a human being, as a person who feels, as a black woman, as a mother, how do you process that?
I agree 100% with everything my sister Kelechi said. As always, it's truth bombs after truth bombs with Kelechi. I think that personally for me, the way I tend to navigate these areas is that I understand that there's a price to pay when you're uncompromising with the truth, you're uncompromising with your authenticity, and you don't fit into a nice little box that they want to place you in. Even when you are that angry black woman trope they want, there's something that you're still bringing out and they can't fit you in there as quickly as they want to. I think the reality a lot of the time for me is that I know who I am. You see, I'm a woman of faith. Amen. So you can't tell me who I am when God has already told me who I am. I'm a woman of principle, and my principle is not inflexible. I recognize, the dark, like the gray shades between the right and wrong, and the gray shades between, the truth and everybody's version of the truth. Why? Because I am human. I recognize that we make mistakes, but even when you cause pain to other people, your intent to cause or not to cause, pain is irrelevant because you have caused pain. So when voices like mine and ours come out in very public spaces, what they do is a tried method of silencing. Because you see, their forefathers did it. Their foremothers did it. Their ancestors did it. They thought, well, if it worked then, it will work now. What they don't realize, particularly with people of African descent, and when I say African descent, I mean all of us black people. Hey, including our white siblings, I don't understand where they originally came from. But what I'm trying to say is that there's almost something within our spirit that tells you, I've seen this before. There's something within your soul. It's almost like the ancestors are saying, my friend, can you hear what they just said? And you're sitting down there. Come on, get up. Say something. And it is really about speaking up for yourself. I remember, I get quite a lot of abuse. Oh my God, what shall I do? And, threats, rape threats, death threats, yada, yada. And I remember that, I'm just giving one example. I remember, because these people tend to look for you everywhere. They will send you emails, they'll send you DMs, they will even look for you on your YouTube channel. So I remember seeing this message that went, that Shola woman, that Shola, Dr. Shola is an ugly, now let me tell you what was going through my mind. You ask how I navigate this. Dr. Shola is an ugly, and immediately, Jesus. The word of the Lord hits me, reminding me that I am wonderfully and fearfully made. Jesus. Oh. So I cannot possibly be ugly. So I went, well, I know I'm not ugly. Dr. Shola is an ugly monkey. I said, well, clearly I'm a human being, so. And you see, when you stay connected and rooted in your truth, you will be like the house that was built on a solid rock. The wind came, it didn't move you. Rain fell down, All of the noise around you didn't move you. You did not fall because you are rooted on solid ground. Can I get an amen? Don't make me preach up in here. And that, I won't lie, but you see, Kelechi is absolutely right. It does feel lonely. Somebody else has said what I've said. Heck, maybe 5 other people have said something similar to what I said. I now put it in my words. That Dr. Shola hates white people. She's anti-white. I'm thinking, where's all the energy? Why are you looking in my direction? Look, I don't mind if that means other people like me don't have to get it. But sometimes when we are under that spotlight, we're not necessarily getting the support, the recognition, because some people stay away. They can see Kelechi is under fire, Shola is under fire, but they don't want to catch the fire. Well, let me just mind my own business and keep scrolling. But I see support from the most wonderful spaces. I see people, some people from, different backgrounds, white, black, and brown, go, no, you can't say that to her. No, what you said is wrong. Some people reach out to me on DM and email to say, we support you. And that is really lovely to hear. But sometimes the private support is, or the public support can help to quiet down those very negative ones out. I'm not saying you should do that. I'm just saying that sometimes it can feel very lonely for those who are publicly navigating that noise. And, if we were not who we are and rooted in the authenticity that the good Lord gave us, some people crumble, but that's what they want. And we are not going to crumble. God forbid bad thing.
Thank you, Dr. Shola. And you speak to something really poignant. I mean, it came up when Candice Brathwaite, for those of you that were here for that talk, when we spoke about you, Kelechi, the importance of showing up and showing out very publicly for people. And I guess it leads me to my next question, because we can talk about racism from individuals. Let's call it what it is. I don't know why anyone's scared, not you lot, but quite often we're scared to call it racism, and that's exactly what it is. But this racism doesn't always come from individuals. It can come from massive platforms, right? We've seen it with both of you recently. It isn't an individual person shaping this. A platform will decide that you're a particular type of person, and people have power over this, who have power over this country, say particular things about particular people. We all know what I'm getting at, but, how do you navigate? I'll start with you, Kelechi, and I'll come to you, Dr. Shola. Kelechi, how do you navigate it when it's coming from platforms and organizations and, groups of people, as opposed to just individuals sending you emails?
I feel like I'm still figuring it out. But as much as I like to think that I'm not a patient person, I'm incredibly patient, and I can hold a grudge. So I look at these platforms and I'm like, if I'm my father's child, as they like to say, I'm taking all of you out. It might take me a while, but I'm gonna do it, because they are the perpetuators of systemic, but specifically institutional racism. A platform or a broadcaster can have somebody swear at you and about you before they go on air. And then that broadcaster can say publicly, we can categorically say that there was no swearing. And when you ask for the footage to prove that there was no swearing, they say that they've got the footage, but they're not going to give it to you. So they're happy for disinformation to be out there, but not provide the information that would quash it, because then it would put them in disrepute. And then you've got other very wayward, very cheap, very crass-looking platforms that will then talk about you and and then members of parliament will join them. And I just find it really, really fascinating that in real time, me that just sees myself as a baby girl, as this individual that's just trying to figure out the world, I don't have all of the answers. And I think it's important to say that all of the time, because I think that as a society, we have the kind of propensity to deify people. We are a celebrity-loving culture. We like for people to be on a pedestal and then drag them off the pedestal eventually when they show that they're human, which they were all along, right? I'm not infallible. I don't have all the answers. I'm figuring things out. So knowing that I'm just one individual without an institution, without a political party, it's interesting that a politician, a member of parliament, can be on national television and call me a jackass for specifying the nuance around white femininity and white womanhood, and it's not contested. Ofcom say it's fair. That can happen. And so I think it's wonderful to be at events such as these and have a room full of people and we're engaged with each other. But I go back to what I said earlier about loneliness. It's interesting that when that same TV platform said something about a white woman that was horrendous, the presenter got suspended immediately. Why are black women not worth these people being suspended for? Why? You know, why is it okay? When has a member of parliament ever said about a private citizen, this person's a jackass, and you know, and it's just been there? Why do I receive that and everybody looks on like, well, you know, Kelechi, she's a bit of a loudmouth? Because I'll go. My thing is that tomorrow I'll go, and then somebody's going to need to step in. And then when everybody's looking around like, oh my God, so what are we going to do? Will we ever be free? You need to ask yourselves what you were doing when people were trying to shake the doors down so we could be free in the first place.
Thank you, Kelechi. We've spoken a bit about community. I'm going to ask you the same question, Dr. Shola. I just wanted to acknowledge something inside the room. And I think the thing that's made me quite sad about some of the conversations that I've had today is nearly every person talks about a period of loneliness. I've heard it so often. Yeah. And, you know, that loneliness that's associated with being a vocal person or being a trailblazer or being the first of, you know, your identity to do something, or sticking your head above the parapet, or not feeling like you've got community or you're the only black person in the organization that you're in. Lots of people speak about loneliness, and I keep saying this in every talk that I do. But again, like, there are lots of people sitting next to you. I cannot stress the importance of spaces like Black Tech Fest, to connect with other people and build community. Yes, it is lonely, but there are elements where it doesn't have to be. So I know sometimes we can be a little bit stush. I'm quite socially anxious, so approaching people isn't the easiest thing for me, but we need to build community. This is why it's so important. Dr. Shola, I wanted to ask you as well, so when these big platforms, not individuals, are creating a narrative around you, are perpetuating and engaging directly in racism against you, how do you navigate that?
You know, I think it's interesting that question brings a certain vision to my mind, because what I'm about to say, I hope, does not shock you. Do you realize that is actually all of our lived experience every single day as black people? So whether it's your school, your workplace, on the high street, on the bus, on a television set, the perpetration of racism, microaggression, is real. We're constantly being put in a position of discomfort, a position of having to defend ourselves, the position of having to tolerate what no one really should be tolerating. And when this happens, as you get older, you now start to ask yourself, what should I do in this very moment? Knowing fully well that once I open my mouth, I'm going to be pigeonholed to fit the stereotype that generated the words that were put out to me in the first place. And that's why, please God, set us free. It is time not to give a rat's ass what they think. On a lot of this, I saw that coverage on GB News. I want useless people. I saw the coverage on GB News but I only became aware of it, the one about Kelechi where they refer to her as Jackass, with that, what's his name, Kwasi, Kwate, that one, that doesn't understand square roots. When I saw that, of course I was pissed off. I was thinking, this is so totally wrong that people placed in a position of public office can perpetuate this. Do you know, it wasn't until I saw Kelechi's own, I even spoke about it, that it was brought to my attention, it was probably already out there, that they had already called me a jackass. But Shola was living her life unaware. You know what I mean? So I think that a lot of the times what we face on this public platform is really no different from what we face, you know, day to day. I mean, there was one of the recent ones was when I was on Jeremy Vine, and the presenter, not Jeremy Vine, but Don Neeson, fell apart trying to say my name on national television. And this is me thinking, I don't understand what she's doing. Because you see, not being able to pronounce my name is not the issue. Do you understand? It's not the issue. It's, you are not even trying. You're literally going, oh, it's so hard. But I was thinking, now this is me being put in a position of discomfort. And it looks to me like the embarrassment she's generating might be addressed to me. I'm like, hell to the freak now. So, Shola, okay, let us say, please say my name. Please
say my name.
Thank you. Please say my name. Because we go, say my name, say my name. Say Mos-Shogbamimu, Shola's around you.
Ra, ra, ra.
Say my name, you know Shola's around you. Say Mos-Shogbamimu. And she kept falling apart. And what people don't realize is that on national television, when you give people power to say certain things when you don't rebut it. You give people power when they place you in a position that you know brings all kinds of stuff, and you are not, you know, you need to find a way to respond to it. I'm thinking, no, not on my watch. This is a name that, look, I know saying African names, you need to have the right attitude. Do. I'm not even asking you for the right attitude. I'm just saying, say my blessed name. And you know the funny thing? On the teleprompter, they had written it out phonetically for her. I said, hey, this baby wants wahala today. Oh, girl. You know the Yoruba side was coming out like, hey, where's my rapper? Where's the staff? And so what people saw in terms of me sticking, you know, basically sticking to my guns was me being authentically me, because I understood that in that moment, I am not going to raise hell. I don't need to raise hell, because the issue for me is not that you can't pronounce my name. The issue is that you're being downright lazy and acting like an illiterate. Because if you can read, you should be able to say my name. It's Mos-Shogbamimu. Look, it's my husband's name. I inherited it. You know, if you look at my maiden name, it's quite, you know. But anyway, you know, love is blind. That's all I can say. Now, yeah, I have 3 daughters. You know what I say to them? So you need to check out that last name first, okay? Before you come and say, Mommy, I'm in love, I don't want to know. Check out the last name. I'm joking, of course. They can marry who they want. But look, navigating these spaces always calls and demands our presence. It is exhausting. Exhausting. You almost have to pick, literally, because you know what is coming. So I would encourage you in any of these spaces, wherever they may be, pick your battles. Never let people transfer their embarrassment and humiliation to you, because the embarrassment was Dawn's, not mine. The humiliation is hers, not mine. Because you see, there ain't nothing wrong with my name. The good Lord blessed us with it. Thank you.
So I guess my next set of questions are more about solutions, right? And how we show up and how we, I guess we've identified the problem. And this is something that I'm sure a lot of people experience in the room in multiple different facets, in many different ways. I was going to ask the question about self-care, but the word self-care just annoys me. I'm like, why don't you go and soak your feet? And you'll be like, no, I'm still pissed off, I'm still upset. So I guess the way in which I'll ask this, it's true though, isn't it? A facial's not going to make, right?
Racism's still outside.
Right, racism's still here. So I guess my question is, and I'll start with you, Kelechi, how do you pour into yourself? What does showing up for yourself look like? How does that begin?
Oh, I think it changes in the day-to-day. I think we have to practice the listening that sometimes isn't afforded to us in society. You're not going to want the same things. So you might do, especially if you're neurodiverse, from what I'm learning, you might want the same things all of the time. But I just feel like for me personally, I don't always want the same things every day. Some days, it's Real Housewives of Atlanta. And that's just what it is. Other days, it's, I don't know, Suya and Gary. It changes, right? But the constant for me that really helps me, just because of the person that I am, those who've seen my social media, on Instagram specifically, I run a lot. I enjoy running. Running to me is like a moving prayer. I do it because it helps me to expel excess energy, and then it allows me to focus on the thing that I want to speak about. So you usually find that I'll make post-run videos because my mind is much more clear to know what I want to convey after I've gotten the excess energy out. I do a lot of weightlifting, lots of physical activities, jiu-jitsu. I do things. My body needs to move because it just works for me, but also I feel like if you stay ready, you never have to get ready. But yeah, that's ultimately it. You know me, I love my learning about the metaphysical, learning about the esoteric, whether it's tarot, astrology, and finding the ways that different cosmology systems exist together is fascinating to me. And friendship. Friendship to me is so, so important. I'm grateful for the friends that aren't expecting me to be Kalechnikov. They just allow me to be me. And we'll have random late night rendezvous and we'll just go and talk about anything and everything and nothing at the same time. And those are the things that keep me going. My friendships, my close relationships, I've got really tight, in a circle. My close, forget it. My close. See,
So nasty.
but my close friends keep me going. My brother, other friends, my family. That's what's important to me. I think that it helps me to really understand that the outside world can't really dictate much to me.
Thank you, Kelechi. What about for you, Dr. Shola? What does pouring into yourself look like?
I'll be honest, self-care was not a word that had any place in my life before COVID. Self-care. Are you okay? Don't you bathe in the morning? Is that not self-care? Don't you, my friend, please. There's plenty of time to sleep when you die. That was literally my mentality. I was always back to back with things I had to do. There were things, I was always just moving until COVID happened. Ha! Lord have mercy. And I was forced to spend time with myself. All of a sudden, there was nowhere to expel, the noise. It was all centered in one place. I couldn't use the kids to distract me because then I had the added task of teaching them. Even my kids were like, please, Mommy, when are we going back to school? You're a terrible teacher. But self-care, what basically happened was I had to evolve and understand that I needed self-care. It was okay for me to bring out my vulnerable side. That my vulnerable side has always existed, but I've never allowed it to breathe. Do you see? So nowadays, self-care includes jogging. Well, I call it running, but my kids say that I'm just walking very fast. I think I'm running. My self-care includes crumbs of ginger nut biscuits on my bed, which drives my husband nuts, as I watch something on Netflix. But primarily for my self-care, when I get to that place, those times, you have a place where you're like, what do I do next? And I'm trying to navigate. My faith comes in. I do morning prayers. I watch something in the morning. It could be a sermon or something to lift up. I connect with the Lord. I've only just realized in my 40s, because I thought growing up, or when I was in my younger age, which is 20s and 30s, I'm still young. But I thought, look, if I do these key things like you say your morning prayers, you connect with God, you do all that, for the rest of the day, you'll be good. No. I mean, you'll be a good person. You will not make any mistakes. That's the biggest lie I ever told myself. Because I then, through self-care, started to learn that I had to make space for when I make mistakes. And when I get things wrong, which I do. And I just speak to my husband and my kids. They were like, oh, my God. And I think that reality and deconstructing what that meant for me has helped me grow as a person. So now, self-care is not only part of my vocabulary, it's part of my everyday growth. I can stand in front of the mirror and go, Shola, the Lord took his time when he made you, girl. Look how fine you are. Look at your teeth, shiny whiteness anyhow. Or I'm looking at the mirror and go, are you the only one? Are you the only one that's going to get annoyed? What is your problem? And it's important to have these conversations. And when Kelechi mentioned having friends, it's interesting. I don't know if I do best friends, but I do have, so for instance, my poor husband tends to be at the brunt of so this is happening, blah, 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 blah. And all he does is sits there and just listens. And I mean, it can go on for like 45 minutes, 1 hour. And I am talking and dissecting and talking. He's already paused the news. He thought he could finish it. He puts it off, puts it down, is listening. And by the time I now finish it, I'll be like, so what do you think? I think you answered it all, Shola, because you said the pros, you said the cons, And sometimes, to what Kelechi said, it is good to have people you can kind of like unload your mind, to, because sometimes we live in isolation. If you have imposter syndrome, you're living in there with imposter syndrome. And sometimes we can't see ourselves, even when we acknowledge our flaws, so to speak, our imperfections. But it's in that imperfection that you are actually being perfect. And it is okay to be perfectly imperfect when you understand that the Lord is my strength and he is my perfection.
Thank you, Dr. Shola. I'm looking at the time. We're going to get dashed off in a sec. I just want to ask a quick question before we get dashed off. Sorry, everyone. I like the fact that you mentioned imposter syndrome. It's really always interesting. I always say to people, imposter syndrome isn't something that we need to manage for ourselves. It's the system that makes me feel like we don't belong. So it's not an us problem. They need to stop pathologizing us. This imposter syndrome is created inside me. It's not a me thing. It's a them thing. But lastly, the final question I wanted to ask was, it's quite a deep one, actually, but it's about how we show up for people. And the reason why I'm asking this question, it makes me reflect when Eliane was killed in Croydon, and there was big conversations around how we talk about the violence that young black girls experience and how we show up for young black girls. And it got me thinking about, based on the community conversation that we've had now, the importance of language, how we show up for people, how your husband shows up for you.
That's when he's not pissing me off, but yeah.
But we're at Black Tech Fest, right? So we're talking about people navigating a space that quite often they aren't the highest populace. So my question is, I'm start with you, Kelechi, and then I'll end with you, Dr. Shola. How do we show up for people? Collectively, there are so many people in this room. There are so many people navigating their journeys. How do we show up, and how should we show up?
I think actually you are a great example of how we show up for people. Of all my friends throughout all of the years, you are exemplary at showing grace. Like, honestly. Like, there are times, like, I think of years and years and years back, when I look back on what I've said, I'd be like, girl, that was problematic as hell. But your response was never, well, that's a ridiculous take to have. I don't have that take. You were just like, well, these are the issues that could come up from the things that you are thinking. I'm just letting you know that. and then you're leaving it there. And I think that it's incredible to see you personally and professionally, and seeing how both things marry, that you have the show that you have. It is the most successful talk show that the BBC radio stations have that talk about issues pertaining to black people. And and there is a reason for that, because you have a superpower and empathy that I don't see in a lot of people. But the reason I bring that up is because you see each of your friends, each of the people that you interact with as an individual. I literally see them. And I think that that is something that we can all learn from, where there isn't a one-size-fits-all for how we show up for people, because you might want to show up for me in a way on Monday that does not suit me on a Wednesday, right? But what you do is that you say to me 4 words that I think are so important. What do you need? And sometimes I don't know what that is, but you give me space. You give all of the people space around you to figure out what that might be. So I think that as the lesson from what I've learned from you throughout the years is we have to ask each other. We have to be willing to ask each other, like, what do you need? And sometimes what people need might not be what you want to prescribe for them. It's just allowing them to tell you if they know, and then seeing how you can support that. So thank you.
Thank you. I feel shy and choked up now. Thank you, Kelechi. I love you. I love you so much.
What about me? I love you, Kelechi. What?
You know I love you as well. But hey, you lot are putting me under pressure. I feel hot. And I know the time is just going as well. I'm sorry. Finally, Dr. Shola, how do we show up?
How do we show up? Okay, I can only speak from my experience. I think the truth for me is that what I hope for is that every time you see me, in whichever capacity, on whatever platform, public or private, that you see a reflection of yourself in me. I don't pretend to have the answers. I don't pretend to know it all. But I hope that when I hold space, or I'm in a space, that I am speaking what somebody else would like to say. I am addressing what somebody else would like to address. I am confronting what somebody wants to confront. And I hope that that way I am showing up for you. I cannot begin to pretend to know what you need. So I hope that through what I need and what I am facing and what I am confronting, that I am helping to address what you need, what you're facing, what you're confronting. Now, this does not mean that you will agree with me in everything that I say or how I say or I do it. I mean, believe me, my husband doesn't agree with 50% of what I do, and I have not divorced him yet. So I am not expecting that we will always be in agreement. That's not what community is about. That's not what family is about. And that is not what it means to stand up or show up for you. It means that you know that in whatever space I'm in, whether you agree with me or not, you can trust me to be authentic. You can trust me to stand by the truth that I know it to be, even when you disagree with me. And I hope to God that I hope that's good enough, because I don't have much more to offer. I am trying to live a life as best as I can. I'm hoping that on the day that I go and meet my maker, that I can say I have few regrets. So I cannot be something for everybody. And I don't think you're expecting that. And if anybody's expecting that of you, I ask you to please shrug it the heck off, because that's not what you're about. So showing up means to me using everything that you are, your voice, your position, your influence. Don't wait for LinkedIn to call you influencer before you know you're an influencer, okay? To use your skill set to make a difference. It doesn't matter if you think that difference is a drop, because drops of water make a what? A mighty ocean. So you do your drops. I do my drops. Richie does his drops. Kelechi does her drops. And watch the mighty ocean that will make being black the future.
Amen. Dr. Shola and Kelechi, everybody.